Revealed. The shocking discovery. A millionaire made on his plate that changed everything forever. Thomas Blake stood in his pristine kitchen, preparing for a dinner party that promised to dazzle his high-profile clients. The elegant space gleamed, hardwood floors shining, marble countertops neat, and bespoke kitchen gadgets glinting with promise. But as he rummaged through a drawer, a leather-bound cookbook emerged from the back, its well-worn pages yellowed with age. His fingers trembled as he recognized his late grandmother's handwriting. Curiosity tightened its grip around his heart like a vice. Thomas flipped through the pages, each one a portal to a simpler time. Memories cascaded back with unrelenting force. A family gathered around a humble table, laughter echoing, love simmering in a pot of stew. The aroma wafting through the kitchen reminded him of shared meals that were filled with warmth, not wealth. In that moment, he felt an ache in his chest, an uneasy contrast between the life he had built and the ancestral struggles that had paved the way for his success. How had he lost the essence of himself in the pursuit of this corporate empire built on ruthless efficiency? He hesitated, staring at the faded recipe for his grandmother's pot roast, windows framing a picturesque view of a town that once felt like home. He felt like an intruder in his own life, tightness coiling in his stomach, nerves fraying. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the dinner party began, the clatter of silverware echoed, his clients lavishing praise over the dish. Their ecstatic chatter filed into his ears, sweet but distant, as he wrestled with conflicting emotions. The pride swelling within him was overshadowed by a gnawing discontent. Was success merely measured by profits and applause? Had he embraced greed at the expense of belonging? A bitter taste filled his mouth, an unsettling realization simmering just beneath the surface. Craving purpose, he hatched a plan. What if he opened a farm-to-table restaurant honoring his roots? This venture would highlight traditional recipes while lifting up struggling local farmers. But ambition came with its own chains, each link forged from self-doubt and fear. As he navigated the turbulent waters of the restaurant business, he felt the clashing of two worlds, the merciless tactician he had been against the authentic man he yearned to become. But lurking in the shadows was a rival from his corporate days, a figure determined to sabotage his progress, amplifying the stakes of his endeavor. Anxiety coiled tighter, suffocating. What if the whispers of his past clawed back, revealing the cutthroat business practices he had prided himself on? Would he betray the very values he sought to honor? As Thomas stood in the heart of the restaurant, both a sanctuary and battlefield, his resolve felt agonizingly fragile. The weight of expectation loomed overhead, and doubt seeped into his thoughts. Had he strayed too far from the man he once was? Standing at this precipice, Thomas took a deep breath, teetering between ambition and integrity. With the opening day edging closer, the reckoning bore down on him. The question loomed. What did success truly mean when stripped of its veneers? Thomas stood in the daylight streaming through the large windows of his empty restaurant, his sanctuary and yet an unfamiliar battlefield. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter. His clients would soon be swapping tales of their latest conquests, their voices a cacophony of false intimacy that only reminded him of the hollow victories he had chased. Each clink of glass against porcelain felt like an indictment of his journey. Anxiety prickled at his skin, forcing him back into the present. The vibrant colors of fresh produce neatly stacked in the kitchen, vivid tomatoes, fragrant herbs, and earthy root vegetables, appeared stark against the dark backdrop of his unresolved past. Thomas could almost taste the promise they held. Yet, the taste of ambition soured in his mouth. reminding him that he stood at a crossroads. He took a deep breath, pushing away thoughts of the corporate world that still haunted him. Memories of burned bridges and cutthroat maneuvers flashed in his mind. Would he be able to repair his identity and stay true to the values he hoped to embody in this new chapter? Walking back to the kitchen, he scanned the space, a blank canvas waiting for his inspiration to splatter across it. Over the following weeks, Thomas poured himself into crafting a menu inspired by his grandmother's recipes. Each dish was a delicate thread, weaving together the past with the present. But as joy blossomed, so did curiosity about his rival, Caleb Danvers, a man who thrived on the weaknesses of others. Caleb had always been one step ahead in the corporate game, and now he seemed determined to crush this budding venture. With every marketing decision and recipe finalization, concern gnawed at Thomas. What if Caleb used his old connections against him? What if he spread falsehoods about the quality of his ingredients, or accused him of shortcomings that would drive away his first customers? The very thought felt like a vice tightening around his chest, exacerbating his fear of failure. As he infused the restaurant's vision with a sense of purpose, he also wrestled with growing despair. Was he truly equipped to navigate this new landscape? Or was he doomed to repeat past mistakes? While those thoughts swirled, a late-night session in the kitchen illuminated an unexpected realization. Working with raw ingredients, the chopping, the stirring, the aromas that enveloped him ignited a dormant passion. Cooking wasn't just an art, it was a form of honest expression. One evening, Thomas invited a small circle of trusted friends, people who had championed him during his corporate climb. Over bowls of his grandmother's recipes, crafted to perfection, the conversation turned. Their genuine reactions inspired something within him, a clarity he hadn't expected, the kind of affirmation only honesty could bring. It reminded him that he had the capacity to build genuine relationships, unlike the hollow camaraderie he had previously known. Yet he felt the weight of Caleb's looming threat. Just as he was discovering his authentic self, the specter of betrayal lurked, waiting for the right moment to expose his vulnerabilities. Thomas realized that he would need a strategy, a plan not solely placed on culinary triumphs, but on fortifying his resolve to withstand inevitable confrontations. On the brink of opening day, armed with newfound purpose but haunted by insecurities and the potential machinations of a rival, Thomas faced a chilling question. How much was he willing to lose to protect everything he had worked for? The moment of truth approached as he prepared his speech for the opening. A declaration of not only his restaurant's mission, but of the man he was determined to become. Would he emerge from the shadows of his past, or face the darkness that sought to consume him? The pressure built as the opening day drew nearer, a revelation looming that promised to test the very core of his identity. What would happen when his truth finally collided with the world around him? The morning sun broke through the kitchen windows, illuminating a space where chaos and magic could coexist. With the clocks ticking ever closer to the opening hour, every minute felt like a countdown to an impending storm. Thomas held his breath, organizing plates according to his meticulous plan. The menu was a reflection of everything he had fought to rediscover: his passion, his roots, his purpose. But unease clawed at the edges of his focus. He peered into the reflection of a polished metal mixing bowl, searching for the man he wanted to be. Who was this person beneath the polished sheen of a chef's coat? What lay beneath the weight of expectation? As memories of the corporate world flickered across his mind, he felt the familiar cold grip of doubt. Had he really escaped that life, or merely shifted to a different battlefield? An unexpected knock on the door startled him, snapping him from his introspection. He opened it to find his friend Sophia, holding a basket of freshly baked bread. "I thought you could use a taste of home," she smiled, but her eyes searched his for deeper truths. Her presence was a comforting reminder of solidarity in a world that felt increasingly hostile. "Thanks, I need it," he said, accepting the basket as if it were a lifeline. They stepped into the kitchen, the intoxicating scent of basil filling the air. Thomas sliced into the bread, savoring the warmth and the crunch of the crust. He needed this connection, this tangible reminder that he wasn't in solitude. They began to chat as he prepped, her laughter easing some of the tension coiling in his stomach. Yet as the hours slipped by, doubt returned, gnawing at his confidence. What had felt so clear in the safety of his kitchen now melted into uncertainty. Caleb. Would he show up? Hidden behind every thoughtful plan was the looming uncertainty of sabotage. Would the rival's shadow darken this fresh start? Sophia read his silence, her voice becoming a gentle prodding. What's going on in that head of yours? Just thinking about Caleb and how he might react to all of this, Thomas admitted, slicing tomatoes with quick, forceful motions. Focus on what you can control, she advised, a look of courage in her eyes. This is your moment, not his. Her words ignited a flicker of resolve in Thomas. As he presented the intricacies of his menu, each dish a homage to his grandmother's legacy, he recognized that he could create a narrative far more compelling than any smear campaign Caleb might launch. What if he invited the community to share in his journey? What if he shared not just food, but the story behind it? The idea took root. He would not only serve plates, he would weave a tapestry of memories, love, and vulnerability. It was time to invite his patrons into the heart of his work. As the restaurant doors swung open to welcome the first guests, Thomas took a deep breath, heart racing. This was his confrontation with the world, not just Caleb, but himself. Could he stand firm in authenticity? With each table filled, he steadied himself and delivered the opening speech. Welcome. Today, you're not just here to taste our menu, but to join me on a journey. Each dish carries the essence of my past and hopes for the future. Let's create something remarkable together. The applause that followed was a balm to his deepest fears. But as the night unfolded, the whispers began to swirl. From the corner of the restaurant, he spotted someone familiar, the mischievous glint in Caleb's eyes. The man lounged against the bar, seemingly casual, yet his presence radiated a predatory energy. Thomas felt sweat bead along his brow. The confrontation was unavoidable. The game had begun. How far would he have to go to defend what he had built? The kitchen buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to Tom's internal storm, swirling with uncertainty and determination. As the evening progressed, his hands moved deftly, chopping, sautéing, plating. But his mind danced with every fleeting glance toward Caleb. The restaurant's atmosphere brimmed with laughter and chatter. Yet a shroud of tension seemed to hang around his own table, where he felt more exposed than ever. The first few dishes were received with the enthusiasm he had hoped for, praises echoing through the room as satisfied patrons savored each bite. Despite the validation, his gaze remained drawn to Caleb. Each chuckle escaped the man's mouth as a pointed reminder of the threat that loomed over him. What would it take to shake off the specter that hovered around, biding its time? "Tom!" A shout from the back of the kitchen jolted him from his thoughts. It was Marco, his sous chef, drenched in sauce but beaming. "The chicken confit just won best dish from our first review. Can you believe it?" That moment of shared victory offered a brief reprieve, lightening the weight on Tom's shoulders. He forced a smile, grateful for the team that rallied alongside him. The first desperate hiccup toward success seemed within reach, yet all he could think about was the addition of another review, Caleb's. The naysayer would surely magnify any faults he could find. Stepping into the role of chef meant stepping deeper into vulnerability, a position he was still learning how to navigate. Just then, Sophia appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, eyes wide with urgency. "Tom, you need to come out here." Caleb's stirring things with a group of customers, whispering and pointing over his menu. An internal battle raged as he faced the rough surface of this burgeoning conflict. Confrontation was the last thing he wanted. A part of him wanted to dismiss the possibility that Caleb could even affect him. He had fought too hard to reclaim this passion. He shrugged his coat tighter as if to shield against approaching negativity. Let it go. Let it go. He muttered to himself. It was the mantra that echoed in his mind, yet in his heart he felt the beast awakened. The kitchen had been a sanctuary, a space of creation, but now it threatened to become a battlefield where his confidence was pitched against the ruthless machinations of a rival. Marco noticed his hesitation. Are you going to face him? Tom opened his mouth to reply when sudden clarity washed over him. He had built this place on authenticity, a recipe steeped in history and emotion. Ignoring Caleb's presence would only give him more power. If anyone needed to be reminded of the truth, it was Caleb himself, and Tom had the means to do just that. I'm going out there, he said, the firm decision solidifying with each heartbeat. I need to show them what this is really about. As he prepared to stride into the dining area, the air buzzed with energy that felt electric. He rehearsed a speech in his mind, grounding himself in the truth of his dishes and the love folded into every ingredient. But would such conviction stand firm against the skepticism that Caleb stirred? As he stepped into the brightly lit room, the laughter faded slightly, eyes glancing toward him. A wave of anticipation pulsed through Tom. He wouldn't allow fear to dictate the narrative of this evening. He would bring the focus back to his food, his passion. Yet as he approached, Caleb's sharp smile fragmented the atmosphere. Ah, the chef himself. Tell me, Tom, is it true what they say about your family's secret recipes? Word has it, some chefs aren't quite what they seem. Every eye in the room fell upon him, and with it, the weight of expectation pressed down. How could he respond? A test was unfolding, and he felt the urge to protect his creation from this insidious threat. In a fleeting moment, Tom remembered Sophia's words. Focus on what you can control. He swallowed hard, letting a smile break through the tension. It was time to confront not just Caleb, but the deeper insecurities that had haunted him from the start. Not everything is secret, Caleb, but some things are worth fighting for. The challenge hung in the air, thick with anticipation. Would he rise to defend his legacy, or would Caleb's shadow once again cast doubt upon this hard-fought journey? Sensing the stakes raised, Tom's heart pumped with determination. The moment of truth awaited, and he would not back down. Tom stood at the precipice of confrontation, acutely aware of the eyes upon him. He could practically feel the collective breath of the diners waiting with bated anticipation for his next move. The room crackled with a strange mix of excitement and apprehension, and he fought to still the whirlwind in his chest. Caleb's grin widened, a predatory gleam in his gaze. You must have a plan, then, if these so-called recipes are the backbone of your culinary empire, he taunted, leaning back in his chair as if he were the master of this tableau. Gathering his composure, Tom drew in a breath, centering himself amidst the mounting pressure. The moment called for clarity, not just for himself, but for everyone who had believed in him. This wasn't merely about a one-upmanship. It was about identity, purpose, and legacy. He couldn't let Caleb rewrite that narrative. Let's talk about food, Caleb, he said, his tone steady and confident. What makes a dish extraordinary isn't just the recipe. It's the heart that goes into it, the story it tells. Every taste of my food carries a piece of my family's journey. You'd know that if you took the time to appreciate it instead of dissecting it for your own gain. The murmurs shifted. Tom could see interest spark in the eyes of the diners, their curiosity piqued by his conviction. He leveraged that momentum, feeling the shift within himself. There was strength in vulnerability. His dishes were not merely about the ingredients, but about his very being. Caleb's facade faltered for a split second. There it was, an uncharacteristic flicker of uncertainty. Stories won't save you from criticism, Tom, he shot back, though the bite was less venomous. Maybe, Tom acknowledged. But stories connect people. They remind them why they fell in love with food in the first place. His words flowed freely now, each syllable punctuating his core belief. When people taste my dishes, they don't just taste food. They taste memories, love, history. That's something you can't quantify in reviews. He gestured to the vibrant plates being served around him. This restaurant isn't just my dream. It's part of the community's fabric. I understand the value of what I've built. Do you? A silence enveloped them, pregnant with thoughts, and Tom watched as patrons reflected on his claims. His heart raced, not from fear, but excitement. Perhaps this was the true test of his journey, a moment he could embrace as both a chef and a person. Caleb leaned forward, his expression mix of irritation and grudging respect. Interesting approach, but what happens when the scrutiny intensifies? What if your history isn't enough to carry you through? Tom sensed the challenge, and it sparked something within him that he hadn't fully acknowledged, the willingness to rise above external judgment and embrace his own convictions. Then I will adapt, he stated firmly. Like any good chef, adversity is part of the recipe for success. I'm not afraid to evolve, as long as I do it authentically. The restaurant filled with soft murmurs of agreement from some diners, their voices nearly drowning out Caleb's tight-lipped retort. The change in air was tangible. Tom had shifted from a reactive position to a proactive one. He was no longer a victim of outside opinions. He was a craftsman, navigating his stage with intention. As he turned to leave, feeling a renewed sense of control and purpose, he paused to absorb one last moment. The energy in the room was palpable, a rare synergy composed of curiosity, challenge, and an unspoken admiration. Determination coursed through him. The battles ahead weren't just against Caleb, but also within himself. As he stepped back into the kitchen, invigorated yet aware of the journey still ahead, he overheard a nearby table whispering about Tom's spunk. If he can confront a critic like that, maybe it's time we experienced what he really has to offer, one customer said. A small smile crept onto Tom's face as he made his way back to his station, the flames of his passion reigniting. But Caleb's presence lingered like a dark cloud, an unresolved tension. And in the back of Tom's mind, he couldn't help but wonder. What other secrets would Caleb unearth in this battle for respect and recognition? It was only a matter of time before the next clash would come, but this time, Tom was ready to embrace it on his terms. Tom returned to his station, a cocktail of adrenaline and introspection swirling within him. The kitchen hummed with familiar sounds, the clatter of pans, sizzling sauté, and the faint chatter of the waitstaff preparing for the next round of service. Each sound felt like a reminder of his journey, grounding him despite the chaos outside. He began prepping for the evening service, but the rhythm of his usual routine was interrupted by the encounter with Caleb. The confrontation had not only awakened his spirit, but had also ignited a deep-seated motivation to prove himself, not just to the diners, but to his own reflection. The questions loomed large. How could he elevate his culinary artistry beyond the usual parameters? What did he still need to discover about himself as a chef? Determined to channel this energy positively, he decided to revisit his core menu. With deliberate intent, he examined each dish, envisioning how he might weave deeper narratives into the ingredients and flavors. He found inspiration in family memories, in the laughter shared over meals, and in the stories told through the ages that had shaped his identity as a chef. As he worked, intuition guided his hands. He set aside the preconceptions of perfection that had previously restricted his creativity. In the past, he clung to established techniques, adhering strictly to culinary traditions he thought were necessary for success. But now he began experimenting, not just with the flavors, but also with the presentation and ingredient combinations. This practicality was soon interrupted when the sous chef, Maria, approached him. She had been watching him transform the ingredients with an intensity that could not go unnoticed. "You're different today," she remarked, curiosity evident in her tone. "What's changed?" He hesitated, the weight of Caleb's challenge still echoing in his mind. "I'm realizing that it's time to evolve," he finally said, his voice measured. "I want to create dishes that resonate more than just taste. Each plate should tell a story. It's more than recipes. It's about connection. Maria nodded, her eyes reflecting understanding. That's powerful, Tom. But remember, evolution comes with risk. What if customers don't respond to your new direction? Something flickered in him, a mix of anxiety and resolve. Then I'll learn from it. Success is a result of exploration, and I'm not afraid to embrace uncertainty. With renewed purpose, Tom set out to rewrite the menu's narrative. He combined unexpected flavors, smoky chipotle with sweet mango, earthy truffle oil drizzled over tangy goat cheese, a nod to his childhood in every single bite. Each entry on this new menu would stand as a testament to his past, but also as a bold step into his future. Hours passed in a blur of preparation, and an energy pulsed through the kitchen as the dinner service commenced. Tom felt the collective anticipation, the same energy that had once filled the dining hall when he confronted Caleb. He stepped back into the dining area, armed with the new dishes plated to perfection. As diners began to share their thoughts, his heart thrummed in his chest. The first response came from an unexpected patron, a well-respected local critic known for his discerning palate. He took a bite of Tom's reimagined dish, a fusion of flavors that encapsulated both his heritage and culinary aspirations. Tom held his breath, a blend of hope and trepidation. What if he could overcome the shadow Caleb cast? The critic's eyes widened, his brow furrowing in concentration. "This plate is unexpected," he said finally, drawing attention around the table. "There's a story here, woven through each bite. It's a narrative I didn't anticipate, and it's captivating." Tom's heart soared. Perhaps he was on the brink of something transformative, not just for himself, but for the restaurant. He watched as diners engaged with the meal, laughing, sharing memories that his flavors seemed to evoke. Yet just as he started to celebrate this small victory, he felt a familiar presence. Caleb had returned, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed and a smirk plastered across his face. Tom's pulse quickened. The hunter was back, and this time, he'd come for more than just a taste. A confrontation loomed, and as Tom faced Caleb, he felt the momentum of his transformation surge within him. What would Caleb unearth in this newly evolved culinary landscape? Would Tom's growth stand against the looming criticisms? The moment was ripe for a reckoning, and the kitchen crackled with tension. Tom steeled himself for the inevitable clash, ready to defend the art he was finally beginning to master. Caleb sauntered into the dining room, the confidence radiating from him like a warm light that threatened to overshadow Tom's newly ignited passion. The atmosphere thickened with expectations, and Tom braced himself as he met Caleb's piercing gaze. There was something predatory in Caleb's expression, like a hawk surveying an unsuspecting field mouse. Anxiety twisted in the pit of Tom's stomach, yet he felt a surge of adrenaline course through his veins, igniting the fire within him. "Interesting direction you've taken," Caleb said, finally unrolling his arms and stepping closer, inspecting the plates. "I can't help but wonder if it's enough to impress." "Enough for whom?" Tom shot back, surprising himself with the edge in his voice. "Are you more concerned about balancing aesthetics or delivering the heart of the dish?" "Ah, heart. That's a lovely sentiment. But tell me something. Are you truly capable of standing behind your new creations when the pressure mounts?" Caleb asked, a hint of mockery dancing on his lips. "Or are you just playing chef?" Tom's heart raced, but he stood his ground, refusing to let Caleb's taunts twist his thoughts back to doubt. "I'm not just playing," he replied, determination lacing his words. "Each dish is a reflection of my journey, my family, and the evolution of my craft. This isn't a game. It's personal." Caleb tilted his head, evaluating Tom with a predator's intensity. "Is it really, or is it a facade? The real question is, how will you react when the critiques don't align with your vision? You may want to rethink your attachment to these stories." There it was, the seed of doubt that Caleb planted. Yet this time, preparing to rise against it, Tom felt a sense of clarity amidst the storm. Perhaps the risks were indeed greater now that he'd ventured into unknown culinary territory. But didn't that make the stakes even more exhilarating? "I know every risk holds the potential for failure and growth," he countered firmly. "I won't abandon what this means to me, even if you think less of it." Caleb's smirk deepened, and he gestured to a nearby table of diners eagerly awaiting the critic's verdict. "Well, let's see whether your heart and stories translate into utter satisfaction. I'd hate for you to walk away with a reminder of defeat." The challenge hung in the air like thick batter on a whisk, and Tom's pulse quickened again. He hadn't realized just how fierce the confrontation would feel. It was not just about culinary style, but about the resilience of his identity as a chef. Yet, a part of him felt oddly liberated. This wasn't merely about winning a battle of wits against Caleb. It was also a deeper reflection of his professional goals. With each returning glance from the tables, he felt a mix of urgency and thrill. Tom had redefined his menu, and now he needed a testament to his hard work, a chance for validation beyond Caleb's scrutiny. As he turned back to the kitchen, his mind raced with ideas, not only on how to perfect each dish, but also on how to elevate them beyond the mere confines of technique. If this evening was to be anything, it would be the culmination of his evolution. He began instructing the team, rallying enthusiasm as they plated the next round of dishes. Each plate crafted was not just a canvas for food, it was a microcosm of his journey, of the stories he had distilled into edible art. As he floated from one station to another, his confidence began to solidify like a reduction sauce simmering to perfection. Outside, he could hear diners sharing praises, laughter erupting as his creations evoked warmth and nostalgia. Yet, beneath the surface, excitement lay the reality of Caleb's challenge. He could not escape its shadows. As the night wore on, Tom caught glimpses of Caleb whispering with the critic, his laughter sharp and cutting through the ambient warmth of the room, like a knife through succulent meat. Disquiet slipped into Tom's mind. What if this turned against him? Eventually, the critic's fork paused mid-air the moment he engaged Caleb, an apparent shift in the energy. Tom's heart raced as the critic locked eyes with him. What would the verdict be? The moment of essential judgment was at hand. Would his hard work earn the respect he sought, or would Caleb's doubts overshadow his triumph? The uncertainty wrapped around his instincts as he prepared for the answer that could carve the path ahead of him. It was now or never. He had to confront not just the critic's gaze, but the very foundation of his budding culinary evolution. Could he withstand the weight of expectations? The piercing gaze of the critic felt like a spotlight, illuminating every shadow of Tom's insecurity. He could sense the weight of scrutiny pressing down on him, transforming that initial thrill into a simmering anxiety. The laughter and chatter that once filled the dining room now seemed muted, a distant echo fading into the background. Tom's focus narrowed down to the critic's poised fork, suspended in midair, awaiting the verdict that would either elevate or devastate his aspirations. He glanced across the room at Caleb, whose smirk still lingered, more a mask than a reflection of genuine enjoyment. In that moment, Tom's gut tightened. He realized this battle was not just for the critic's approval, but was, at its core, a test of his identity. Every choice he'd made until now, every dish inspired by his grandmother's tales, each ingredient meticulously selected, was at risk of being dismissed as mere entertainment. Taking a deep breath, Tom stepped back into his own headspace, shielding himself from the external chaos. What did he truly want to achieve? Not just tonight, but throughout his career. Recognition was enticing, yes, but deeper than that was a longing for authenticity. His culinary creations were extensions of himself, each dish pulsating with memories of his upbringing and the lessons learned after countless hours in the kitchen. What would it mean if the critic deemed them unworthy? Tom could feel the chains of self-doubt tightening, each link forged by Caleb's biting remarks and the pressure of reputation. Yet, amid the turmoil, another realization began to bloom. Failure did not define him. It was a stepping stone, sour but necessary in the path toward his craft's mastery. He returned to the kitchen, recentering himself in the whirlwind of culinary chaos. "Focus," he commanded, rallying the team. "Each plate has a story. Let's make sure our voices are heard." As he moved through the kitchen, he instinctively began to weave in elements of his personal narrative, reminding himself that joy and pain could coexist in each dish. This wasn't simply food. It was a medium of expression, a connection to the past, and a leap toward the future. Tom returned to the plating station, meticulously composing the next dish, an homage to his childhood and all he had persevered through to arrive here. He poured his soul into a vibrant palette of colors and textures, a visual tableau that depicted both the sweetness of nostalgia and the bitterness of uncertainty. The process was meditative, pulling him away from the critical gaze that had haunted him moments before. Plate after plate came alive under his touch. Each was a reflection of growth, calling upon his hidden resilience and newfound determination. As the final dish was readied for service, he paused, allowing a sense of calm to wash over him. A sudden clattering broke his reverie. A chef in the kitchen had dropped a stack of plates, drawing attention. Tom turned to see Caleb watching, his bemused expression solidifying Tom's resolve. This was more than just one night. It was a defining moment in his culinary journey, a chance to reclaim his narrative. "Tonight is not just about judging," Tom said aloud, drawing the eyes of his team. "It's about storytelling. And tonight, we tell our story boldly." Tom placed the last dish on the pass, looking up at the critic who was now leaning back in his chair, a contemplative look upon his face that sent a shiver down Tom's spine. The moment hung heavily in the air. What if the critic saw beyond the surface? What if he truly understood the heart of Tom's culinary vision? He attended to the diners, who were busy sharing their thoughts with one another, a mix of excitement and surprise bubbling in the air. The atmosphere shifted as forks plunged into his creations, accompanied by murmurs of delight. But Tom couldn't shake the nagging feeling of impending judgment still lurking in the corner of his mind, especially as he caught a glance at Caleb, whose demeanor seemed to shift with each bite the critic took. Then came the moment. Tom's breath caught as the critic set down his fork, leaning closer as if to savor not just the food, but the essence of what lay behind it. Would Tom's journey culminate in an affirmation of his struggles and growth? Or would he find himself still shackled by the very doubts he fought to dispel? As the critic's mouth opened to deliver his thoughts, Tom felt the room fade away, and all that remained was an echo of uncertainty. Would it be the validation he craved, or a reluctant wrench back into darkness? He was ready to find out. Tom held his breath as the critic's lips parted without faltering. With the world reduced to that singular moment, the critic's voice resonated through the dining room, layered with gravitas. "This dish speaks to me," he began, studying Tom intently. "But it's missing something, a deeper layer." Each word cut through Tom like a knife. Relief battled confusion as he parsed the meaning behind the critique. Was this criticism a mere adjustment, or did it hint at a more profound misunderstanding of his intent? The relief that momentarily washed over him faded as quickly as it came. What did the critic know about longing, about nostalgia, infused into meals that carried history? Tom's resolve reemerged. He had crafted these dishes not merely for approval, but to ignite connection and resonance with every person who took part in his culinary journey. With a swift turn, he faced his team, who had been listening intently to the critic's comments. "Let's adjust the approach," he said, suppressing the tumult within. "We might not have the luxury of time tonight, but our goal remains to present our truth. We adapt, but we remain authentic." The kitchen surged to life, a frenetic dance of renewed energy. Tom overlooked the whirlwind of activity, watching as his team responded to his renewed focus. He could hear the rhythm of pots clanging and the sizzle of pans, a symphony he had orchestrated amidst chaos. But inside, a tempest brewed. This moment propelled an epiphany. Tom realized this wasn't just a duty to entertain. It was an opportunity to carve out his voice in an unforgiving industry. It meant leaning into vulnerability instead of retreating behind bravado. As he resumed the plating station, his heart raced, not with fear, but with burgeoning creativity. He sketched a new vision of the dish in his mind, layering flavors in a way that harmonized his grandmother's recipes with his unconventional techniques. Each ingredient became a bridge to the past, while crafting a narrative for the future. Caleb hovered in the background, still assessing. But Tom dismissed his presence as he zeroed in on the dish. Time felt suspended as he executed his ideas, employing techniques he had learned, integrating new inspirations that had only hinted at themselves before. Here, in this intense rush, Tom felt clarity. This was what he had pursued, an honest dialogue through food. In that intoxicating moment of creation, he was drawn back to the critic. The man inspected every bite, wrestling with the unspoken depth Tom was infusing into the dishes. As the critic savored each culinary creation, Tom felt those chains of doubt begin to weaken, unraveled by the steady grip of self-assurance. Then, in a turn of fate, the critic met Tom's gaze, and their eyes locked. A challenge passed between them. What had begun as mere observation now transformed into a profound inquiry. Your food is rooted deeply, but can you dig deeper? That question echoed. What more was beneath the surface? Could he delve into hidden territories of his experience that had shaped who he was? Not just as a chef, but as Tom, shaped by love, heartache, and ambition. Tom inhaled, conscious that the night was morphing into so much more than a professional test. It was a lifetime of stories waiting to be told. But the looming question nagged at him. How much more of himself could he reveal? As the relentless energy of the kitchen thrived around him, Tom paused, contemplating the implications of the critic's challenge. He turned toward Caleb, ready to confront the simmering rivalry between them. It was time for a revelation, a confrontation that would lay bare the struggles that had followed him throughout his journey. Tom's heart raced with purpose. The time has come to face what I've kept hidden. No more masks. Would he find courage in his vulnerability as he prepared to share his most personal narratives through his craft? What depths lay ahead? With the critic's question resonating in his mind, Tom prepared for his next move. The night was far from over. Thomas Blake stood behind the gleaming counter of his restaurant, the scent of fresh basil intertwined with his grandmother's legacy. But today felt different. It was more personal. The journey since that fateful discovery in his grandmother's old cookbook propelled him toward this very moment. It was an adventure that had tested his identity, his integrity, and now his culinary artistry. With the evening crowd peering expectantly at him, he focused intently on the dishes that he and his team crafted together, a vibrant amalgamation of their hard work and shared stories. The atmosphere buzzed, filled with laughter and discourse that reminded Thomas that connection was at the heart of every meal. As he plated up the finished dishes, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. His mind drifted not just to the ongoing competition with Caleb, who loomed like a ghost of his corporate past, but to the evolution of his newfound principles. Now, he poured his heart into every plate, each a canvas displaying colors that resonated with history and modernity. Today, instead of seeing Caleb as a hindrance, Thomas viewed him as a catalyst for authenticity, forcing him to confront his fears and igniting his passion. Would success still be defined by the superficial accolades he once chased, or could it be measured by the genuine connections he fostered through food? He had begun to unravel the essence of true fulfillment. Tonight was a spotlight not just for the food, but for the emotional work he had done to reclaim his identity. The juxtaposition of his beginnings with the depth of his culinary creations showcased his growth. As he felt the rush of adrenaline from service, clarity emerged. His restaurant was an embodiment of courage, vulnerability, and determination. His team thrived under pressure, their laughter palpable as they executed each dish. "Let's keep the momentum," Thomas urged, feeling the camaraderie of his kitchen staff grounding him. With each table that received their creations, that initial spark of hope transformed into a renewed sense of purpose. Diners eager to taste his grandmother's recipes, infused with a twist of his unique flair, were captured in the moments unfolding around them. An evening that began with a challenge, the critic's gaze, had now morphed into an exploration of joy and identity. After a particularly successful service, he paused for a moment, soaking in the fullness of this experience as the clamor quieted. The evening had unfolded beautifully, but amid the triumph, the figure of Caleb still lingered near the bar, observing, waiting. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, rather than feeling intimidated, Thomas held his head higher. "Good dishes feed the body, Tom," Caleb sneered, the sharpness of his voice slicing through the warmth of the evening. "But can they really nourish the soul? That's the real question." At that moment, Thomas understood. Success did not rest solely on external validation. It reflected the narratives shared, the emotions evoked. He needed to stand firm in the depths of his vulnerability, for authenticity required admission of imperfection. So, when he replied, his voice carried firmness and clarity. "Then let's see who can create the most nourishing experience, Caleb. Because I believe every plate carries a story ready to be told, and perhaps you will learn that before the night concludes." The shift in tone startled onlookers, but Thomas's tone had never felt more resolute. He didn't see this as merely competition, but rather an opportunity to illuminate the path of storytelling through food. By the end of the night, the local critic leaned back in his chair, an impressed smile blooming across his face as the final dish, the culmination of Thomas's transformation, was placed before him. The first tentative forkful met his lips, eliciting a moment of silence before he chewed thoughtfully. "It's more than just a meal," the critic finally spoke, the sincerity in his voice palpable. "It's a bridge to experiences long forgotten. Exquisite." As the applause erupted around him, Thomas felt the weight of his journey lift. A profound sense of satisfaction welling within him, he realized that recognition had come through a commitment to his authenticity. The meals he served represented more than his technical skills. They were the culmination of his experiences, the legacy of love from his grandmother, and the depth of emotion he had dared to express. In that moment, on mythical ground reclaimed, he proved to himself what it meant to achieve success. Confidence surged through him. He was not just a chef, but a storyteller, grounded in identity, thriving under the embrace of vulnerability, the passion to forge connections through flavorful narratives. Nobody could take that away from him, not Caleb, nor anyone. Thomas Blake had finally found his calling, his true success. Now it's time for you to carry this transformation forward. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.